Hi, I'm Kim Campbell and I wanted to invite you into my kitchen. I'm a vegan and my family, they're vegans. We've been doing this for more than 20 years now and I wanted to share some of our favorite recipes with you, starting with vegan meatballs. A lot of meatball recipes that you find online and in cookbooks require you to use veggie meat out of the bag, but we're not going to do that with this one. This one's kind of unique because you're going to use all fresh fruits or fresh vegetables and herbs, and it's really simple and you can do it ahead of time and freeze the meatballs, or you can use them immediately. We'll start out with a large bowl. And you're going to add your ingredients, and I've had them all pre-cut because I wanted to get this done quickly so I could share with you how easy they are, especially if you prepare ahead of time. The first thing you're going to add is whole wheat breadcrumbs. What I do is I put 4 slices of 100% whole wheat bread into the food processor, process it, and it ends up looking like this. You can add a little more or a little less if you want more meatballs or less meatballs. So you start out with your breadcrumbs, and then you add, I use about 1/2 cup to a cup of grated carrots. Grate those up ahead of time. I chopped up some fresh parsley. Throw some fresh parsley in there. You can use dried parsley, but it's always better if you can use it fresh. It gives it a nicer flavor. I chopped up some onions. You can use green onions, red onions, white onions, whatever you prefer. And that was just 1 onion. I use a lot of garlic. There's probably 7 or 8 cloves of garlic in there chopped up. It gives it a really nice flavor. The more herbs and spices you use, the less salt you're going to want to put in your recipes, and we all know that salt isn't very good for you these days, so we're trying to cut back on salt. The next thing I have is about 1/2 cup to a cup, depending on how much you like the flavor of pecans. And what I did with the pecans is I put them in my food processor and I processed them until they're really fine. If you want them a little bit more coarse, that's fine too. Then I add a pinch of salt, and a pinch of salt is probably about 1/2 teaspoon. I also use sea salt because it has less sodium in it than regular salt. Put some pepper in there. I don't really measure my pepper, I just sort of add what I think my family would like, but my guess is 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon. Thyme, I use the ground thyme, and it's about 1 teaspoon of ground thyme in there. You can use fresh thyme, that actually gives it a nicer flavor. I don't have fresh thyme with me. And then just take your dry ingredients, kind of mix them up so you get it thoroughly mixed. I like the colors, I like the parsley, I like the carrots. It just gives it more of a nice consistency and color. You could add anything else green to it that appeals to you. You could even put a little spinach in it, whatever you like. The next thing you're going to do is take tofu. I use firm tofu. You do not have to use firm tofu. You can use any kind of tofu that is on sale or that's organic. Slice this up, and I need to put it in the food processor and whip it up so it's a little bit of a cheesy kind of consistency. I'm just going to take a second to do that. And so that the flavor gets dispersed in it, I'm also going to add some tamari, a couple tablespoons. If you're on a low salt diet, that teaspoon of salt that I added to the breadcrumbs, you may not want to add that because tamari is also high in sodium. But I'm going to put that right in there and process it back up again. It's probably good enough. The consistency, I'll try to get that in the camera, it's the consistency of ricotta cheese. And then you want to put that in your breadcrumb mixture. This is going to be, when you make meatloaf or meatballs, you have your beef and then you have eggs. So this is going to be your substitute for beef and eggs. It's going to give it the nice, meaty, full flavor that your beef gives you. The next thing I want to add, and I wanted to wait and hold this off so I could show you the box, it's called Vital Wheat Gluten. And there's different companies that sell Vital Wheat gluten. I tend to use Arrowhead Mills. And you need to put about 1/4 cup of Vital Wheat gluten in there. And I don't have a measuring cup with me. I'm not real great about measuring. Sprinkle it into your mixture. What this does is it helps things stick together the way meatballs should, or meatloaf if you were making a meatloaf. If you are sensitive to gluten, you could go without this. You want to make sure that if you're sensitive to it, that maybe you just go without it. Just know that your meatballs are probably going to fall apart a little bit easier. And then the last thing I want to add is oatmeal. Oatmeal is another grain that will help to give it that sticky consistency. And I like to use my hands when I get to this point. You can mix it with a spoon, but at some point you're going to just have to put your hands in there, take your rings off. And you'll know when the consistency's right. If it feels a little bit too moist, you might want to add some more breadcrumbs to it. I like to experiment with my meatloaves and add different herbs or spices. This is kind of the basic recipe, but if you wanted to add spinach, carrots, you want to put a little bit of celery in it, you can experiment with some things. Basil is another thing that my family likes, and sometimes I put that in. When you get it to the consistency where you could almost pick it up in a ball, now you're ready to make the meatballs. And I don't make my meatballs real large. You can make them on the small side. You want to, at this point, take a cookie sheet, just like that, and pick it up. You know, if you don't want to pick it up with your hands, you could use a spoon. And I would make them right about that size. I'm going to make mixed sizes tonight. What you can do when these are finished baking, you're going to put them in the oven about 350 degrees for about a half an hour. Wait until they're kind of golden brown. And when they finish cooking, you take them out. I always let them cool a little bit. You can put them in the freezer. You can use them for all sorts of things. But it's a nice alternative to processed meatballs, because if you look in the ingredients in your processed meatballs, you can't even pronounce some of those ingredients. But this is nice. You know what goes in it. You know how much salt you put in it. You know how many nuts you put in it. If you want to cut back on fat, maybe you don't even want to add the nuts. That's the nice thing about this recipe. The one ingredient that you don't want to cut back on is your tofu. You're going to need at least 1 cake of tofu. And I'll come back to you in a little bit after these are done baking and share the finished product. Hi, welcome back. I think our meatballs are finished. So I'm going to take them out of the oven and show you what they should look like when they're finished. Real quick here. I cooked them for about a half an hour, and this is what they look like, and they're real easy to pick up and put on a plate. You want to let them cool for quite a while before you do anything with them. If you put them in spaghetti sauce, they'll start to fall apart, so let them cool. If you want to freeze them, let them cool. Join us for our next recipe. We'll see you later.